Welcome aboard. This is episode 3 of Ahoy, a Disney cruise planning podcast presented by vacationkingdoms.com. My name is Connor Brown. I'm a frequent cruiser, seasoned travel agent specializing in Disney Cruise Line vacations, and I've got plenty of insider tips, insights, and firsthand experiences to share with you on this show. Whether you're looking to plan your first sailing aboard Disney Cruise Line or you're a seasoned cruiser looking for even more tips, this podcast is your ultimate destination. If you want even more Disney cruise content in between episodes, be sure to head over to vacationkingdoms.com to learn more. So, in our first episode of Ahoy, I shared what I was loving about Disney Cruise Line right now. In our second episode, I shared my first impressions of Disney's newest private destination, Lookout Key. That second episode, it was a timely episode. I had just come off the preview cruise to Lookout Key, that new destination. And then, of course, the first episode of this podcast, it was just an intro to me and the show. Today, in this episode, I want to take a step back, shall we? I want to take a step back and give a brief overview of Disney Cruise Line in general. I think this is going to be a great intro for those looking to plan their first Disney cruise and a great refresher for those looking to come back on board. In this episode, I'll be giving a breakdown of all the things you need to know. Things like the different ships in the Disney Cruise Line fleet, the dining options on board, your typical onboard amenities, entertainment and shows you might be able to experience, fun Disney Cruise Line exclusive experiences, and of course, the destinations and the itineraries that Disney Cruise Line sails to. So, with all that said, how about we get into it, shall we? With this intro to Disney Cruise Line. Now, DCL, as I call it and many others do, Disney Cruise Line, it's been setting sail for 26 years now. It actually debuted in 1998. And in those 26 years, it has been welcoming guests aboard, and it has only ever seen growth. Growth in popularity, which has responded in growth in the size of the fleet. And really, right now, I think it's at an all-time high popularity-wise. It's not just Disney experiencing this, because cruising in general is seeing record highs. Since it's come back in full force after the pandemic, it's more popular than ever, with the largest cruise ships setting sail across the world and the largest cruise lines building more and more cruise ships with each and every day. So even though DCL, Disney Cruise Line, has been around for about 26 years, and it's one of the more popular in the market, it's still considered a small cruise line. Its popularity is probably directly attributed to the brand name Disney. Just everyone knows that, right? In the cruising space, it is a huge player. It's the number one family-friendly cruise line, no doubt about that. But when you look at it on the overall cruising scale, it's far from being the biggest. In fact, it's really more close to being one of the smaller contenders in the space. Royal Caribbean, which is probably the most popular when it comes to cruising, well, they currently have 27 ships in their fleet. Carnival, which is the largest cruising company in the world, the Carnival Holding Company, which encompasses several brands. One of those brands is Carnival Cruise Line. Carnival has 27 cruise ships in the Carnival Cruise Line brand. Celebrity, which is owned by Royal, and it's a little nicer, I would say a little more premium than Royal, one step above Royal. They have 16 ships. Princess Cruise Lines, if you're familiar with the Love Boat, they set sail on a Princess cruise ship, has 18 cruise ships. And Norwegian Cruise Line, NCL, they have 19 cruise ships. For the American audience, those are kind of the big players in the cruising space. Yes, there's plenty of other ones. Yes, there's plenty of other great options, but those are the big ones. Think of those numbers. 27 cruise ships, 16 cruise ships, 18, 19 cruise ships. You'd think, knowing that Disney is very popular, they'd have somewhere around that number. Incorrect. Disney currently has 5 cruise ships. 5 cruise ships. They have 3 more on the way, plus, newly announced, they'll have an additional one built, but that one will actually be run by a third party company. The Oriental Land Company, which owns and operates Tokyo Disneyland, is also going to own and operate this new cruise ship, but Disney is just licensing the Imagineers, the people that build the cruise ships, and their characters, brand, that sort of thing, to the Oriental Land Company that's going to run that ship. So we've removed that. We've got 5 ships right now with 3 more on the way for a total of 8 cruise ships in the coming years by 2025 that Disney will have in their fleet. 8 compared to 27, 19, 18, 16. One other thing to keep in mind too, Royal's not stopping at 27, Carnival's not stopping at 27. These cruise lines are adding on new ships just like Disney is. So I think that that's something important to talk about because not only is Disney more popular than ever, but considering that they don't have a whole lot of ships in the grand scheme of things, that really goes into how you're going to plan your Disney cruise vacation, both from a demand perspective, an itinerary perspective, and a scheduling perspective, when they offer certain itineraries, where, at what time. So that's all to kind of paint the picture of the size of the Disney Cruise Line to begin with, which is very, very important. As I said, this is going to be a brief overview of Disney Cruise Line in general, and I think the best first place to start is the ships themselves. So Disney, again, currently sailing 5 ships in fleet. They're spread across 3 classes. Now, what is a class of a ship? A class of a ship is simply a group of ships that share similar commonalities and characteristics within the fleet. Think of it like cars. Mercedes, they actually use the class terminology. If you look at Mercedes sedan level cars, they have the C class, the E class, and the S class, and they all offer different things. Now, Mercedes does use it as a marketing tool, right? A C class is smaller and more affordable than an E class, which is smaller and more affordable than an S class. That makes sense. But within each of those classes, you have ones within it. Like a C class, there would be the C230, the C250, and so on and so forth. They're within their own unit. If you look at them all straightforward, you can say they look very similar. There might be some differences here or there to it, but they were built with the same frame, the same design, that sort of thing. Cruise ships operate in that same way as well, mainly because on these types of cruise ships, purchasing a cruise ship that you purchase from a ship builder that builds it in their ship yards to your specifications, it's rare to purchase just one. Usually you purchase them in a group, but when you purchase them in a group, they're not all going to be completely different. So certain classes on Royal might cater to certain people. With Disney, it's really what time in their life cycle that they've built these ships, and how many did they order in that class. If we go back to the very beginning, the first class is the Magic class. You'll see a pattern starting to form that the name of the class usually takes the name of the first ship that debuts in that class. So the Magic class consists of the Disney Magic, which debuted in 1998, and the Disney Wonder, its sister ship in the class, which debuted in 1999. From that, our second class in Disney Cruise Line is the Dream class, which is comprised of the Disney Dream, which launched in 2011, and its sister ship, the Disney Fantasy, which launched in 2012. The third class that Disney currently has is the Triton class, also known as the Wish class. And of course, the first ship in the Wish class is the Disney Wish, which debuted in 2022. There are 2 more cruise ships coming to the Wish class. That will be the Disney Treasure, which is debuting at the end of this year, 2024, And the Disney Destiny is rounding out the Wish class, which will be debuting in 2025. Now, if you remember, I mentioned they have 5 cruise ships currently and 3 coming in the next couple of years. The 3 coming in the next couple of years, the Treasure and the Destiny, which will be in the Wish class. And then there's the Disney Adventure, which is also debuting in 2025. That cruise ship is in a class of its own because it's very, very, very specific. This cruise ship was actually going to be called the Global Dream and was going to be built and operated by a Chinese company. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, this company fell on hard times. They filed for bankruptcy and they weren't able to complete the Global Dream. A lot of it was finished. I guess kind of the outside structure and some of the inside bones were finished. Disney saw this as an opportunity and they purchased this as an almost liquidated asset from the company to bring it under their fleet. This is going to be a very, very, very different style of ship. One, because it was already being built, so Disney had to kind of go in and retroactively change plans to fit within their theme of what a Disney Cruise Line ship needs to look like. But also because this cruise ship was being built for a Chinese and Asian market, at one time it was going to be the largest cruise ship in the world. This is going to be very big, much bigger than any Disney ship Disney has ever created. It's going to cater to a very specific audience. It probably will never come stateside. It will probably never sail out of the States or even the Mediterranean or anything like that. During its inaugural sailings, it will be sailing out of Singapore. It'll be catering to that market. So it's kind of removed from things, I would say. So the main classes we're focusing on is the Magic, the Dream, and the Wish class. Now, if we go back to the Magic, those OGs, the original cruise ships for Disney Cruise Line, the Magic class is actually 42% smaller than the Wish class, which is the newest class in the fleet. And the Magic class is also 35% smaller than the Dream class. So 35% smaller than the Dream class, 42% smaller than the Wish class, and this is an overall size of the ship, which then correlates to how many passengers it can accommodate, those sorts of things. When you start to see those numbers being, 35% smaller than the Dream class, 42% smaller than the Wish class, you can start to see the difference between each class, right? The Magic class is much smaller. The Dream class is much bigger than the Magic, yet it's still a little bit smaller than the Wish class. If we break it down from a maximum capacity standpoint, the Magic and the Wonder, the 2 original ships, they have a maximum capacity of 2,713 guests, with crew that totals 3,663 people in total that can be on the ship at any one time. Those guests are spread across 877 staterooms with 11 decks. So still a lot of people, right? But if we go up to the Dream and Fantasy, they have a maximum guest capacity of 4,000 people with a maximum capacity of crew and guests of 5,458. The Dream and the Fantasy have 1,250 staterooms spread across 14 decks. So let's compare the Magic and the Wonder, 2,713 total guests, to the Dream and the Fantasy, 4,000 total guests that it can accommodate. 877 staterooms on 11 decks for the Magic and the Wonder, 1,250 staterooms across 14 decks for the Dream and the Fantasy. So very different for sure. Now, the Wish is bigger in lengthwise, yet it still can only accommodate 4,000, I say only, 4,000 maximum guests aboard. The crew, it has a bit more crew. It comes out to a maximum of guests and crews, 5,555. So a little bit more than the Dream and Fantasy with crew involved. Like the Dream and the Fantasy, the Wish class, the Wish itself, has 14 decks. But here's what's different. So the Wish has the same, total guest occupancy, the same number of decks. The Wish only has 4 more staterooms than the Dream and the Fantasy, but the makeup of the staterooms is different. The Wish has much less inside and ocean view staterooms, but it has 47 more veranda, that means a room with a balcony, staterooms compared to the Dream and the Fantasy. Why is this? Disney looked historically at all the rooms that they sold, and they knew their most popular category was a veranda room. So a regular stateroom with a veranda, a deck, a balcony attached to it. They knew that. They said, let's cater to what people want and build a ship around that. Since you have to have, obviously, more openings to the sea for to accommodate verandas, that means your boat's going to have to be longer. So that's where the Wish becomes bigger than the Dream and the Fantasy, to accommodate more veranda staterooms across its 14 decks. That might seem like a lot, right? We go from the Magic and the Wonder with 2,713 people total possible to the Wish at 4,000 total guests possible. You might be thinking, wow, that's a lot of people. Surely that has to compare to some of the bigger cruise ships around the world. It's not even close. When you compare those sizes to the largest cruise ship in the world, the one that just debuted a few months ago, Royal Caribbean's Icon of the Seas, that ship has a maximum capacity of 7,600 passengers. That's a lot. Not only is it, of course, bigger when it comes to people being allowed on board, but of course is bigger across more decks. It's a much wider ship. That's the biggest ship in the world, right? Still, Royal Caribbean has 17 ships in its fleet with more than 4,000 guest maximum capacity. They have 17 ships that are larger than Disney's current biggest ship in the Wish. This is me just trying to paint a picture that Disney is more boutique and smaller than the other power players in the cruising space. So if you're listening to this and you're already an avid cruiser and you love sailing on Royal Caribbean, keep that in mind, that the ships that you're going to go on, even if it is the Wish, will probably be much smaller and from an amenities perspective might offer less things than a Royal Caribbean ship does. But I believe the things that it does offer, Disney does so well. And if we want to focus more on what they do offer on board, a huge part of any cruising vacation, no matter what cruise line you're on, is the dining. Now, different cruise lines, of course, charge for different pricing, but more often than not, a cruise vacation, the price that you pay gets you your room, gets you all food or general food on board. It gets you entertainment. It gets you access to the pool, those sorts of facilities. Of course, there are upcharges all along the way, but food is a huge allure of all cruising vacations. It's almost like an all-inclusive if you add on a drink package. Disney doesn't offer drink packages, but other ones do. Dining on a Disney Cruise Line vacation is very different when compared to other cruise lines as well. Disney offers what they call rotational dining, which is unique and almost exclusive to the Disney Cruise Line experience. What this means is on each ship, there are 3 unique dining rooms. You rotate through them, your server and your assistant server. They follow you from dining room to dining room as you rotate through those 3 main dining rooms on board. Now, this rotational dining, it only applies to your dinner service, to your dinner meal service. There are 2 seated times for dinner across Disney Cruise Line fleet. The early window is 5:45 p.m. and the later window is 8:15 p.m. You're able to select which one you want based on availability. The earlier you book, the higher likelihood you're going to have. The 5:45 one is the more popular dining time, mainly because we're dealing with families, right? We're dealing with little kids. They want to eat earlier. That makes total sense. So if you prefer to eat later at 8:15, you should have no problem getting that dining time at all. And even if the 5:45 one is booked up, but you really want to eat then, you can always join the wait list. And more often than not, I have found people have gotten off that wait list and are able to eat dinner at 5:45. You'll eat dinner at these three dining rooms, and again, the first night you get on, you'll be in one dining room. The next night, you'll be in the second dining room. The third night, you'll be in the third dining room. And then you'll start the rotation over again. One important thing to point out is each night, dinner is taking place at all three of the dining rooms. You just might not be eating in two of them, right? So it's always going around. You're always getting the full kind of experience, whatever that might be, throughout your cruise. You get to experience multiple dining rooms during this length of your cruise. The cool thing about your service team following you is they get to know you, you get to know them. You also see them at other parts of the ship. They work in other restaurants during the day, during breakfast and lunch, so you might bump into them. They might start to memorize your drink orders, so they'll always have your Diet Coke waiting for you. They might know your specifications around what you like for dessert. They'll start interacting with the kids. Maybe they do magic tricks. It just becomes kind of your cruising family that follows you from dinner to dinner throughout the ship. I absolutely love rotational dining because it's something different each day. Not only is it a different themed room, it's a different menu, it's a different experience, it's a different cuisine that you get to see, sometimes a different show that you get to see as well. So those are the main dining rooms. Again, that applies just to dinner. Usually one of those dining rooms is open for breakfast in the morning, and you're able to, on a first come, first serve basis, go in, order your breakfast off a menu, sit, and a server will bring it to you. At that point, it's not your service team that is following you for breakfast. It's just a random server that's helping you with that, but it's for breakfast. You don't have to attend it. You can go up to the buffet and eat breakfast there. You can skip breakfast, whatever it might be. Typically, mainly on sea days, one of those dining rooms will also be open for lunch. It's typical, but it's not always guaranteed. So you can check the Disney Cruise Line Navigator app, which is your go-to for everything, to see what dining room is open for lunch. But if you don't want to do a seated dining room experience for lunch, there's plenty of other options around the ship that we'll get into. So let me break down the dining rooms on each of the ships. Like I said, these classes have sister ships, right? So the Magic and the Wonder, the dining rooms you're going to see are sometimes identical, sometimes very, very, very similar, sometimes totally different. Mainly what the class thing boils down to is the three dining rooms are in the same location from ship to ship. Their theme might be different, their offerings might be different, but the location is going to be in the same place. So if you were put on the Magic and everything was removed and you said you're on a Magic class ship, get to one of the dining rooms, you should be able to do it even if you've only ever sailed on the Wonder. So right now, the Magic's dining rotations, and I was just on the Magic for 2 cruises, one just a couple days ago and one last month. Their dining rooms are Lumiere's. Lumiere, of course, being the candlestick from Beauty and the Beast. This is your regal dining experience, you could say. A French-themed menu, not overtly French, though they do have escargot, which I always get, and it is delicious. A French-themed menu, very regal, murals of Beauty and the Beast on the far wall, that sort of thing. That's your first dining location. On the Magic, there's also Rapunzel's Royal Table, of course, themed to Tangled, the movie. This not only has a German kind of feel to the menu, but it's all decorated to Tangled. You'll see the lanterns above you, floating there, bright and glistening, all those sorts of things. There's also a show that goes on during your meal as well. Singing, dancing, musician, character actors, all from the film. It's a lot of fun. They also come by your table very briefly and you get to meet them. So it's kind of like a character dining experience. Not really, because there's not a whole lot of interaction. It's more entertainment than anything. And then there's Animator's Palette. Animator's Palette is on 4 of the ships. They differ from ship to ship. This is one of the favorites across all of the Disney Cruise Line. The notion here at Animator's Palette on the Magic is that you're within a cartoon. You're within a classic Disney animated film. The walls all around the restaurant start to have sketches on them. Then throughout the night, outlines are added to them, color is added to them, and by the end of your meal, the initial sketch has transformed magically into a feature animated film or the final product that you know and love. There's a show at the end of the meal that goes along with this. That's a lot of fun, but the magic in the room going from black and white turning into color, that's something that only Disney can do. The dining experience, its menu is elegant as well, like almost everything is seated wise on a Disney cruise vacation. But it's a solid menu. Let's leave it at that. We'll get into everything in a little bit. What I also want to say is I'll also be doing deep dives on future episodes into each specific cruise ship and talking more in depth on other episodes about the dining experience at each one of these locations. So stay tuned for that. Again, this is just a general overview. If we transition to the Magic's sister ship, the Disney Wonder, she has Tritons, which, much like Lumiere's, is this regal experience. Tritons, of course, King Triton from The Little Mermaid. It's a little more mermaid themed, but the menu is very similar to Lumiere's. It also has Tiana's Palace, Princess and the Frog themed, with some New Orleans flair style of meals, and Animator's Palette. Animator's Palette on the Wonder is pretty much a direct copy of the Animator's Palette on the Magic. If we go to our next class, the Dream class, the Dream's dining rotations include Royal Palace, which again is their elegant, regal themed sort of experience. There's murals of all the princesses. It's a very regal feeling thing. Again, a more French inspired menu. The Dream also has Enchanted Garden. This one's hard to describe other than it feels like you're in a very colorful garden. There's a fountain in the middle of the dining room, which that's pretty awesome. There are flowers throughout. The flowers sometimes open up, large flowers. They cast light from the flowers. It's a very, very cool experience. And then the Dream also has Animator's Palette. This one is a bit different. It's focused a little bit more on the animation styles from Pixar animated studios, and that story of something going from a sketch to an outline to a more realistic full color image doesn't necessarily occur here, but one show that occurs on pretty much every single cruise that you're on when you're in the Dream. This Animator's Palette has a turtle talk with Crush sort of sequence, if you've ever done that in a Disney theme park. So basically, Crush comes to your table via a virtual porthole to him sailing next to the ship, and he talks directly to you, and you get to have a conversation with Crush. I like this a lot. I think I prefer the Animator's Palette experience on the Magic and the Wonder to the Dream and, spoiler alert, the Fantasies version of Animator's Palette, but it's very fun. Kids love it. It's great. If we go over to the Fantasy, very, very, very similar to the Dream. Instead of Royal Palace, they have Royal Court, almost identical. Really hard to tell the difference. They too have Enchanted Garden, and their Animator's Palette is identical pretty much to the Dreams as well. Now, if we go to our third class of ship, the Wish, their dining rooms differ the most compared to anything else on the fleet. I would say that the Wish really focuses more on a dining show and experience than the other ones. The Magic and the Wonder, they all have their stories like Rapunzel's Royal Table and Tiana's and that sort of thing, but the Wish kind of elevates that. You have first and foremost Arendelle, a frozen dining adventure. There you might see Princess Anna, you might see Queen Elsa, you might even get to see Olaf the Talking Snowman, And the menu here is themed more towards Norwegian fare, but I would say very, very subdued Norwegian. I've enjoyed it. There's singing, there's dancing, there might even be musicians at a central stage. It's really well done, well themed to Arendelle as well. The second dining room on the Wish is Worlds of Marvel. This one is cool. To be perfectly frank, the menu at Worlds of Marvel is a little lacking, I find. It's a little too basic for me. The food is still not bad at all. But the story here is you get to meet some of your favorite Marvel characters. There's a show that takes place on screens that might have something happening to the ship. You might get to meet a character from Marvel that you might know and love. You might come to your table. No promises there, of course. But it is a cool dining experience. It's a great entrance. There are friezes, like a relief of Marvel characters as you walk in. I really like the theming of this restaurant. But probably my favorite rotational dining experience across the Disney Cruise Line fleet is the Wish's third rotational dining room, and that is 1923. 1923 is the year the Walt Disney Company was founded by Walt Disney and his brother Roy, and this is kind of like an elegant 1920s steakhouse that you might find in old Hollywood. The food is exceptional, the theming is great, it's warm, it's inviting yet dark woods. It feels like you're in a steakhouse. It's right in the main part of the ship in the atrium. And what's unique about this, actually, pretty much Worlds of Marvel and 1923, but 1923 does this even more. Instead of having one gigantic restaurant, they split it into two halves, the Walt side and the Roy side. They're identical, they're mirror images, but because they're walled off and it's smaller, it feels like a much more intimate dining experience with your fellow cruisers. I really like that a lot. The food, the theming, the notion of it, the idea, the coziness. 1923, that's my favorite. But I love dining aboard Disney Cruise Line. Now, of course, I said that that's what you're going to do for dinner, right? You still got 2, maybe 5 more meals, if you're lucky, across the day that you need to indulge in. Cabanas is located on the first 4 ships. So the Magic, the Wonder, the Dream, and the Fantasy have cabanas. This is on the pool deck at the very, very, very back. It's inside. This is the buffet. It's open for breakfast and lunch pretty much every single day. It used to be open for dinner. It was more of a seated dinner. Hasn't really come back since the pandemic. But for breakfast and lunch, cabanas is your go-to. I will caution you, it can get very, very, very crowded during peak times. So what I always say is get there early or get there much later in that time frame, and it'll be easier to navigate, easier to get a seat, less of a line to get that food for you. Traditional fare during breakfast, sometimes they have some fun things like Mickey Churro waffles, which is an elusive but delicious treat aboard Disney Cruise Line. And then during lunch, you can typically find things like, there's usually like a steak, there's burgers, there's hot dogs, there might be pizza, there might be French fries, things for everyone, salad bar, pasta dishes. Usually on the first day and maybe some other days, they'll have like a shrimp, mussel, and crab leg bar, that they might have. It's great. You can feast as long as you want. The Disney Wish is a little bit different in what they offer for their buffet experience. Theirs is called Marceline Market, and it's more, centralized, I guess you could say. So each space is more, hey, this is your pasta section, this is your meat section, this is your XYZ, right? It'll still be very familiar to Disney Cruise Line cruisers. It still is a buffet, but it's just themed and styled a little differently. One thing that I absolutely love about Marceline Market is it also has a coffee bar where you can purchase specialty coffees at an upcharge within Marceline Market. So if you're the type of person that you need your latte to start the day with your Mickey waffles, I am that person too. On the other ships, you have to go to another place, but here you can actually purchase that coffee in Marceline Market right then and there. It also doubles as a bar. So if you're there during lunch and you want a beer with your lunch or something like that, you can go there and you can order an alcoholic beverage at an additional charge as well. I like Marceline Market a lot. Let's stick with food because we haven't talked enough about it, right? Additionally, each ship has some quick service or counter service food locations that are usually around the pool deck that you can indulge in as well. These are things for some of them offer a quick breakfast, but mainly it's for lunch, dinner times, and then late night. One or two of them will be open as well upon the option. Things like burgers, hot dogs, pizza, wraps, salads, things that are quick and that they can kind of do in mass. Those are kind of the stylings that you'll be able to get on the pool deck. They differ from ship to ship, and again, I'll get more in depth when I do my specific ship offerings with all of that. There's also Cove Cafe. Cove Cafe is on each ship, albeit in a different location on each ship. It's a great place to get premium coffees. It feels like an actual cafe. You go inside of it. It's an extra cost, of course. They also have liquor drinks, beers, wines, those sorts of things. The Cove Cafe is almost always in the adult-only section of the ship, so keep that in mind. On the Dream, the Fantasy, and the Wish, there are other places, like I mentioned, at Marceline Market, for you to get premium coffees. The Magic and the Wonder don't really have that. It's kind of Cove. Actually, there's one option on the Magic and the Wonder where you can go beyond that, but Cove is your central location for those things. They also have some complimentary like croissants, some muffins, some things like that you can get. But let's transition into adult-only dining. Each cruise ship has some options when it comes to adult-only dining. Now, these are not included in your cruise fare. There's an additional charge. Sometimes it's a flat rate, sometimes it's a la carte, sometimes it just depends. What you need for this is one, you need to be an adult, you need to be willing to spend more on your Disney Cruise Line vacation, and you need a reservation. You can get a reservation beforehand, you can get a reservation when you come on board. Things do fill up, some things are popular. These restaurants are much smaller, and since it's catering to anyone that can get a reservation, I would always say if you want to try one of these things, be sure to try and get a reservation before you get on the ship to ensure you can experience it. On the Disney Magic, Wonder, Dream, and Fantasy, there's Palo. Palo is Italian for the pole, which is the thing that they call what they attach the gondolas to in Venice. Beautiful. So it's an Italian-themed restaurant. Delicious, love it. I particularly love brunch at Palo. It's exquisite. On the Wish, there's Palo Steakhouse. It still offers the same sort of Italian fare that the other Palos have, but additionally, it has more steak options. On the Dream and Fantasy, not only do they have Palo, but they also have Remy. Remy is a step above Palo. It is a more French cuisine focused experience. Remy, obviously, the rat from Ratatouille. And just know that it's a little bit more expensive, a little bit higher end than even Palo. And then on the Wish, they have Palo Steakhouse and Enchanté. Enchanté is also a French experience. I have dined there for their brunch. It was remarkable. If you like that sort of stuff, if you're bold, you're out there. Service was exceptional. The food was fantastic. And the view and setting on that ship for Enchanté is spectacular. I really, really, really love it. So those are your adult dining options. But of course, room service is actually included on your Disney cruise ship. Not a lot of other cruise lines can say that, but room service is included. Of course, if you order alcohol or specialty coffees, those sorts of things, there is a charge. Just a reminder, tip the steward that comes and delivers your food. That's a nice gesture that you need to do. But other than that, it's included. The moral of this story is on a Disney Cruise Line vacation, you will not go hungry. I can guarantee that. You will not go hungry. Let's focus now on the pools and onboard amenities. Across the ship, there are plenty of bars, lounges on all the ships. Depending upon the time of the day, they might be adult only. There's adult only sections on the ships, but during the day, a lounge might double as a family arts and crafts or a family trivia area. During the day, the most poppin' part of any of the ships is the pool deck. Almost every ship has a slide option or a slide experience. The Aqua Duck is my favorite on the Dream. You actually go up above the pool deck, you get into a float, and you go around down some tubes. You see some stuff. You might go up a little bit. You might go down. It's really, really, really cool. There's a kids' play area on all the ships, meaning like a kids' splash pad. And then there's an adult-only pool area as well. They differ by ship, both in their location, their expansiveness, those sorts of things. But there's always an adult-only option for the adults. Sports courts. So each one of these has one. They're outdoors on the first 4 ships. The Wish has an indoor sports court. Things like ping pong, basketball, foosball, those sorts of things take place there. Sometimes there's indoor soccer. There might be dodgeball for children. I don't know. But it's things like that. The Dream and the Fantasy, they also have mini golf on board, completely free to play. They have golf and other sport simulators, which are an additional charge and require a reservation. And that's only on the Dream and the Fantasy. One thing that Disney Cruise Line is very known for are the kids clubs. They break these up based on age. So you have the Oceaneer Club and the Oceaneer Lab, which goes from ages 3 to 10. You have Vibe for your preteens and tweens, 11 to 14. And then you have Edge for 14 to 17-year-olds. Each of these is in a different location on the ship, and it's exclusive for those age groups. You can drop your kids off there. They'll be taken care of. There's activities throughout the day. They're free to come and go. You can pick up your kids, obviously, but they don't need to be there for a set time. They can do one thing and then head out, those sorts of things. Additionally, there's one other thing called the 1820 Society. The 1820 Society is reserved for those quote-unquote kids that are between the ages of 18 and 20. So they can experience the adult-only areas, but they might not, be able to drink. They might not want to do all the adult experiences. They're kind of in this weird limbo phase, right? We all remember 1820. 1820 Society just kind of is for a gathering place for kids of that age. Sometimes they do things like coffee happy hour at Cove. Since they're 18, they can get in there. So they buy them a round of coffees. All very cool. I've had many clients, as I am a travel advisor, and I help people book these vacations, say, we drop our kids off at the kids clubs in the morning. We don't see them until dinner time because the kids absolutely, absolutely love this. At dinner, they eat as quick as possible so they can get back up to the kids clubs. They make friends. They talk to their friends outside of the ship. They're Snapchatting with them. They're playing video games with them outside the ship. I know people that have created lifelong friendships just from people that they've met on Disney cruise ships. That's incredible. And that goes to the power of Disney and their emphasis on kids' entertainment in those kids' spaces. For the little ones, for the wee ones, from 6 months to 3 years, there's the Small World Nursery. Now, where the Oceaneer Club and Lab, Vibe, and Edge are all complimentary included in your Disney Cruise Line vacation, the Small World Nursery is not. This is the only one that requires not only a reservation, so the other kids' clubs, kids can come and go, they don't need to be there for a certain time. It's a Small World Nursery, requires a reservation and an additional charge. It is a $9 an hour minimum of 1 hour to book. I believe if you have 2 children that you're dropping off, the second child is at a reduced rate, but that first child, $9 an hour and a minimum of 1 hour. A big thing here would be if mom and dad want to go to Palo for a adult only dinner, you could drop the kid off here for 2-3 hours, however long you want to have them there. They can kind of babysit them, right? So that's the only one you have to charge for, and just know that that's that. One cool thing that Disney also has on their cruise ships are movie theaters. They show first run movies, sometimes ones that are debuting in the theater that week. They're also debuting on the cruise ship. Those are complimentary to watch. And also classic movies. On the first 4 ships, there's one theater, the Buena Vista Theater, that is a large movie theater that you go in. They run movies all the time during the day. The Wish has 2 movie theaters that are much smaller, the Neverland and the Wonderland movie theater. They don't really show any R-rated movies here, right? The most will be PG-13, but there's a wide variety of films that they show. On the most recent one I was on, Inside Out 2 was there, Wish, another new Disney animated movie, but also Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, which is from Disney's 20th Century Fox platform, was showing. There's also Funnel Vision. Disney ships have funnels, those big red smoke things on the top of each cruise ship. There's one that is at the end of the family pool area, the most popular pool area. Disney shows on that funnel on a big, massive television screen movies all the time during the day. They pump the sound out so everyone can watch it. It's really cool to be lounging, chilling outside at the pool and watching a movie on board. Additionally, there's also a Senses Spa on board that have additional spa purchases that you can make, massages, facials, pedicures, manicures, all sorts of things like that. There's also world-class gyms on each ship. Disney is known for a lot of things in the entertainment world, and of course, their live shows and theater productions are one of them. Entertainment on a Disney Cruise Line vacation is spectacular, and this really sets them apart from a lot of other cruise lines out there. Not only do they have great entertainment, but they have great stories that they can pull from. And it all starts with Sail Away, the Sail Away party. This is pretty typical across cruise lines, across the industry. Theirs is a lot of fun because, of course, you get to see the characters. It's usually up on the pool deck, weather permitting. The ship's horn blasts the magical Disney songs that it sings once you're sailing out of the port. It's a great way to kick off your cruise. I highly recommend you do it if you're sailing on Disney Cruise Line for the first time. Another important factor of the Disney cruise experience is the fact that they have characters everywhere. If you've ever done a Disney World or Disneyland vacation and character meet and greets have been a top priority, you know that it can be hot outside, it can be long lines, all that stuff. There are so many character opportunities to meet and greet characters aboard a Disney Cruise Line vacation, and more often than not, they're inside. Oh my God. They're very, very, very efficient. The lines can be long. A top tip for meeting characters: if you want to meet someone like Mickey Mouse, Mickey meets almost every single day. The line is going to be longer the first day of the cruise compared to the last day of the cruise. So if you can hold out hope, wait for the end of the cruise. Don't wait too long, and just know that. When some specialty events are happening, Mickey might be in a different costume, which people like to get a picture with him in each costume that he has. Just keep that in mind, though. But there are characters everywhere. And it's not just the Disney tried and true characters like Mickey, Minnie, Pluto, Chip, Dale, Donald, Daisy, Goofy. It's also characters like, sometimes you can meet Rey on the Disney Wish from Star Wars. Sometimes you can meet Chewbacca from Star Wars. On a Disney Magic that I was just on, Thor was meeting and greeting. Spider-Man might have been meeting and greeting. And of course, you have the princesses that meet and greet a lot during the cruise. There's also the Royal Gathering, which is a exclusive reservation. It's totally free to reserve, but they do go quickly. And it is kind of an expedited way to meet a whole lot of princesses very, very, very quickly, which is great. Characters are everywhere, but then the Disney Broadway style shows. Now, there's usually 3 Broadway style shows on each ship. Usually, how it goes is one of the shows will be a retelling of a Disney movie. One will be a review of sorts featuring a lot of songs from a lot of different Disney films. And then sometimes there's a show created specifically for the ship. As an example, I was just on the Magic. The 3 on there was Tangled, the musical, right? The retelling of Tangled. There was Disney's Dreams That Soar, which was kind of the review style thing, a lot of songs from a lot of films. And then there was Disney's Twice Charmed, which was a retelling of the Cinderella story, kind of if Cinderella wasn't the one that was transformed into the beautiful princess who had the glass slipper, that sort of stuff. That one was created specifically for the cruise, those sorts of things. They differ from ship to ship, but there's always 3. The cool thing about this is there's 2 showings each night. The showing that you'll go to is the one opposite of when your dining time is. As an example, if you have the 5:45 dinner seating, you'll go to the 8 o'clock showing of the show that night. If you're at the 8:15 dinner seating, you'll go to the show at 6 o'clock beforehand. So it's usually 6 and 8 o'clock that those 2 showings occur. And again, it's opposite of whatever dining time you have. So you'll be able to experience your rotational dining and whatever show is going on that night. Now, if you're on a longer cruise, of course, that only accounts for 3 nights of your cruise. What else occurs? They'll bring in a variety act. The 5-night cruise I was just on, there was a magician that did 2 shows one night. But if you're sailing on a Disney cruise in the Caribbean or the Bahamian itineraries, more likely than not, you're going to get Pirates in the Caribbean, the Pirate Night festivities. Not only are you going to get the characters all dressed up in their pirate best, you're going to get an exclusive menu where you're seated that night for dinner. It's going to be the same menu across all 3 dining rooms that night. It's going to be pirate themed. And in the evening, at night, up on the pool deck, late night, there's going to be a special party, especially pirate themed party, where at the end, weather permitting, as they always say, Disney shoots off fireworks at sea. It's remarkable. It's so cool. I love it. Additionally, entertainment beyond that extends to things like lounge singers. There's always sometimes piano players playing Disney songs or playing any songs that you know, people with guitars, singing, all sorts of things. You can check the schedule for who's playing when on your ship. There's trivia, bingo. Those are both fan favorites that take place almost every day. Trivia takes place multiple times a day, and there's so many different options you can choose from. Mixology classes are another fun thing for an additional charge. There's always something to do on a Disney Cruise Line vacation. Now, let's talk about destinations and itineraries. The one thing that you need to know about the Disney Cruise Line experience is, because they only have 5 ships, soon to be 8, but really soon to be 7 in America, they're somewhat limited in the destinations and itineraries they can service year-round, all-encompassing, those sorts of things. Royal, that has 27 ships, they can be sailing the same itinerary on different days across multiple ships. So you kind of have more options to choose from. Right now, Florida is the only option that offers year-round departures, meaning from January 1st to December 31st, those weeks, a Disney ship is always sailing out of Florida. The home port and terminal for Disney Cruise Line is Port Canaveral. They have a dedicated terminal that they built, that they own, or lease, whatever. It's also closest to Orlando and Walt Disney World, about an hour's drive from those locations. Disney has opened their second dedicated port and terminal in Fort Lauderdale. This is brand new. I've sailed out of it twice now. It opened in November of 2023, and the 2 times I've sailed out of it have been pretty easy. Of course, it's very close to not only Fort Lauderdale, but Miami. If you're flying in, both of those airports are options, and you can quickly get transfers in either of those areas to the cruise terminal. All other terminals that Disney sails out of are rented, quote unquote rented, meaning Disney has it for a few months. They'll Disney-fy it a little bit, but it's kind of a general cruise terminal. It's not a dedicated, only Disney is sailing out of this year round. So Port Canaveral is the year-round hub. Fort Lauderdale is quickly becoming that year-round hub as well, albeit Port Canaveral still probably has the most options. And the most typical cruise itinerary is the Bahamian or Caribbean itinerary. There are different ones within each of those. There are things like Western, Eastern, and Southern Caribbeans that are offered different times of the year. But these are the most popular because of the ease of getting to Florida for the Americas and good weather year round. Disney sailing from Florida is accessible to the Bahamian and the Caribbean itineraries, so that's why these are the most popular. Port Canaveral is easy to get to, Fort Lauderdale is easy to get to, and these destinations are easily serviceable from those home ports. The reason these two itineraries are sets of itineraries are also very popular is because they more often than not include Disney's private destinations. I say destinations because Lookout Key, which just debuted last month, is on a lot of Bahamian cruise itineraries. And then Castaway Key, which is their original OG private island, is on many Bahamian and Western and Eastern Caribbean itineraries. People sail for Castaway. The main reason a lot of people sail on Disney is Castaway. And now Lookout Key has entered that discussion as well. 3, 4, 5, and 7 night cruises are the most offered for Disney Cruise Line. They have some longer. They really never have any shorter than a 3-night cruise. But typically you're going to go 3, 4, 5, or 7, depending upon what you're looking to do. Now, that's Florida. That's where they're sailing year round. They also have some other destinations that they sail from each year, albeit a shortened window throughout the year. One popular destination is Alaska. Disney sails out of Vancouver, Canada from May through September for their Alaskan itineraries. Disney Cruise Line also has a robust European sailing season. The main port that they sail out of for those cruises is Southampton, England, but they also have some cruises that sail out of Barcelona and Civitavecchia, which is the Rome port or the port closest to Rome. It's still pretty far away, but it's that kind of Mediterranean cruise that you might sail out of that port from. Those European destinations are from May through September as well. And again, those itineraries can be Mediterranean, they can be the fjords of Northern Europe, the British Isles, a lot of destinations that they sail from, a lot of unique cruising for that. They also now offer for the first time ever Australian and New Zealand cruises that set sail from October through February, which is of course down there, that hemisphere's summer season. Every once in a while, other frequent ports that Disney sails out of, Galveston, Texas, San Diego, sometimes New Orleans they'll sail out of. They have a lot of special itineraries for those locations. Now, while I said all of those are the normal cruise itineraries and schedules that Disney has, this also brings up the dilemma of a Disney cruise. You can pick the ship or the itinerary, but more often than not, you can't pick both. What do I mean by that? Besides Bahamian and Caribbean cruises, there's usually only one ship servicing that area for their respected seasons. If we look at, let's say, the Alaskan itineraries, right now those Alaskan itineraries are being serviced by the Disney Wonder. Once it's done with that, it'll sail in San Diego for a little bit, and then it'll make its way west, further west, and sail in Australia and New Zealand for that time period. But there's only one doing that it's the Wonder. For the European cruises coming up, the Dream will be out there, or currently is out there for that season, while other cruise ships are in other places, right? So if you want to sail on the Wish and you want to go to Europe, that's not an option. Or if you want to currently sail on a Dream class going to Alaska, that's not an option, as the Wonder, which is in the Magic class, is the only ship that services that area. This is the dilemma because Disney Cruise Line, like I said at the beginning of the show, is a much smaller cruise line. Royal, which has so many ships, can have multiple ships in Alaska. Usually they're on the same cruise class, right? But you can still pick from here or there. Versus Disney, which is you either want a ship or you want an itinerary. More often than not, you can't pick both. It's also a thing to consider when it comes to when you want to sail. Disney's very strict when it comes to their sailing schedule, like all cruise ships are, right? They leave on this day, they come back on this day. With a smaller fleet, the options and the opportunities are fewer and far between, meaning more often than not, you're going to start sailing on a Monday versus a Wednesday, what have you. You're just a little bit more pigeonholed. The limits your start dates and the ones you can select from with smaller ships. So I will say for your first cruise, usually the Bahamian or the Caribbean is the best way to start, and it's a more traditional offering, right? You're getting that cruise experience, that sun and sand and sweet, sweet drinks that you've probably come to know and understand a cruise might be. So that's why that's also year-round. It's the most popular, the most in demand. They're also the fun ones to start. Throughout the year, Disney also offers some specialty cruises like Halloween on the High Seas, which set sail pretty much all out of Florida. Sometimes you can see them in other ports as well. Basically, what this means is they're decorating the ship and they have some extra special entertainment offerings that occur. Additionally, they have very maritime cruises, same sort of thing, Christmas themed. But then there's also the Marvel Day at Sea cruises. These are select 7-night cruises. There's only one Marvel Day, again, the Marvel Day at Sea, that occurs on these cruises, but it brings special entertainment, for hard to find character meet and greets, a lot of additional Marvel themed entertainment that you get to experience. Well, this short overview to Disney Cruise Line has gone on for an hour now. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. I was trying to talk as quickly and as efficiently as possible, but as you can see, there's just so much to cover. That's why I wanted to give this kind of overarching overview, and then in subsequent episodes from now, I'm really going to dive deep into each of these sections, both from a specific cruise ship perspective and a fleet-wide perspective as well. There's so much to talk about when it comes to Disney Cruise Line. I really do think it's Disney's best current product from a vacation perspective. I absolutely love it. But there you go, your brief intro to Disney Cruise Line. And hopefully with more episodes, you'll start to better understand the cruise line, the fleet, the specifics of Disney Cruise Line, and all these deeper dives that I'll be doing on specific ships in the future episodes will hopefully help you better understand DCL as well. But if you enjoyed today's episode and if you are on YouTube, be sure to hit the like button, leave a comment, let me know you enjoyed it, and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to follow our handle at Vacation Kingdoms across all the social medias. For those people listening on Apple, please be sure to subscribe and rate and review the show on there as well. I'll be reading future reviews of the show, so please send those in. Take a couple minutes out of your day. It really means the world to me. If you're listening to the show on Spotify, give us a 5-star review, and please click the follow button on the show, as that will help us out as well. If you like the show and you think you know someone who might like it as well, please consider sharing it with them, or if you know someone who's planning their next Disney Cruise Line vacation, share the show with them as well. And if you are ready to book your next Disney Cruise Line vacation, I would love to help you with that as the Director of Agent Development and the Travel Advisor with Keys to the Castle Travel. I'll help you find the best deals, answer any questions you have, and I'll be an advocate for you, someone you can turn to for advice when it comes to booking your next Disney Cruise Line vacation. The best part of it is when it comes to the booking of your trip, my service is absolutely free. It doesn't cost you a dime. Reach out to me at Connor, CONOR, at vacationkingdoms.com, and I'd love to help you book your trip. Of course, if there is ever anything I could ever do to help you out, I am more than happy to help do so. Shoot me an email. Let me know. I'd love to hear from you. That's going to do it for this episode of Ahoy, a Disney Cruise Planning Podcast. I've been Connor Brown, and until next time, keep LTD, living the dream, and I'll see you real soon.